All right, so we're here with Andrew Mayo again, doing the round 2 of creating the story for what we're calling now The Mystery Man. That's just the title we have now. This is draft 1, and it looks all official. It's got the watermarks and everything on it. And once again, we want to make sure we get your comments and your feedback. So let us know in the comments below what you think of maybe try this idea, suggestions, anything. We'd love to hear you. The more ideas, the better, because we're trying to make this a community of filmmakers, not just us making films, but we're making a community. Scene 12, take 4. So what we're doing today is we're looking through the script. This is the first draft. It has the basic idea, direction we're going with it, but it is, for lack of better words, it's horrendous. But sometimes that's okay. You need to just get it out, sit down, type it out. Typically what they say you do is you sit down and you just start typing, and you don't go back and correct typos. You don't go back and correct, like, well, what if I rephrase it this way? Just let the thoughts flow, and then you'll come up with something that looks and sounds about as bad as this script does. And that's what we're here, is to go through and fix it, find out what is salvageable in this script, what is not. I've had a few different people look over the script, and they're all like, and that's about as good as I get. So I understand that. I'm not offended that Andrew's probably going to rip it to shreds here, but that's what this is for. Make sure you have thick skin when you're a filmmaker, because that's not symbolically me, is it?
No, that was the first part of the script where there's not actually any text. The rest of the stuff that we're going to tear apart is here, but if I tear it apart, I can't tell you what's wrong with it.
Okay. Whew. I thought, like, you got to have thick skin. You're like, I'm like, oh, that's me. So, yeah, have thick skin when you're making a film, because art, a lot of times you get that personal attachment to it, but a lot of times we like it, and it doesn't mean other people like it. There could be a lot of improvement on things, so make sure you're open to suggestions, other people giving you ideas, including you writing ideas and telling us if something stinks or if it doesn't.
All right, so when Luke sent me a link to the script, I did not know what the title was. I opened it and it's like, The Mystery Man. So I'm thinking we're looking at something like The Invisible Man from Hugo or H.G. Wells. We're looking at, you know, some type of modern day thriller, and I open it and I start reading and I'm like, I think he's just stealing from the Lord of the Rings and like condensing Fellowship down. So I was like, Luke, we may have some problems.
We're going to start off kind of doing a basic read through here. You're not going to hear everything we're doing here. We'll go back and forth on this. If Sam, a younger man, runs through the woods, he jumps behind a log to catch a rest. He reaches inside his shirt to pull out a key and a rope around his neck, so he's got the key around his neck. I can explain that. Suddenly, memories flash to his vision in distorted manners of colors. It's great having a mime here with me as well. A man kneeling with a bag around his head.
I'm not going to try to do that.
And a voice is heard. And this guy with text is the king saying, with no proof of innocence, he shall be hung at sunrise. And this is where I got typo. I put it run rise, but that's okay. Typos are fine in the first draft. Sam shakes his head and begins to run again. So we have a kind of idea where we're going to put this. It's going to be into the woods at night. So it's going to be kind of that creepy mood. We're going to have some cool lighting and fog effects. But it's also going to be like 0 degrees. So it might just naturally be just like the fog of their breath more than anything. So
if we can catch it right, that'll look cool.
It could be, as long as the equipment doesn't freeze. It'll have equipment freeze, which isn't fun.
No.
So Sam is seated at the table with a friend who hands him a glass orb.
This is another flashback.
Yes, in his vision. It says, and the friend says, let this light be a guide to you. Kind of like the whole Lord of the Rings where the elf hands the little light thing. Stole that idea from there. The friend hands Sam a key as well in this vision, and then Sam, he's back in his normal world. He runs to a fork in the path. Not sure where to run, he pulls out the glass orb. As he points it down one fork, the light turns on the path. As he turns it down the other fork, it goes dark. He points it back to one fork, giving him direction. So Sam continues running until he finds an old building. He cautiously walks in, reaches the door, and surprised to find the door open, he just walks in. So now we switch location, scene to inside this old building, no windows. We get some location scouting stuff here. Some light back there, so you can see that. Think about having lighting down there, or even over here, to give some kind of that cool, looks like it's kind of old location. Obviously don't show the the lights above there. But having it look like there's an old man in kind of the basement of an old, dirty, rundown building. So here's kind of what it looks like lit by this cool orb thing. So Sam slowly opens the door. The interior is dark, but a candle is lit. This makes him extra cautious. He comes to the door with a large padlock, and he gets another vision. It says, "Take the key." So Sam pulls out the key that was around his neck, and it fits perfectly into the lock. Sam opens the door and inches inside. Old man sits in the opposite corner with his back towards the door. He appears to be fumbling with something on his face.
Are you Eusebius?
The old man gasps as he jumps and grabs his chest as he turns around like, "Sam!"
How do you know me?
The old man looks around to come up with a good sounding lie. "I know everything." Sam notices that the beard appears to be falling off the old man's face. I know the last part, a lot of it you didn't actually hear because we either deleted out or covered up because we can't give away everything in the film. We are going to have to sit down and how are we going to build out the beginning part of the story here. Looking at the first page of the script, and also remember, we have the limitation, we can only have 50 to 100 words in the dialogue. So this is the first time I've ever had to create a story where I was told the pieces of the story I had to build in limitations like this. It's very, very different writing this than a normal story. Normally you come with an idea of a story and you build the pieces you need along. And this one I had to build the story off the pieces. And it was like, what can we do? And we talked about it in the video. I took a lot of the stuff we talked about. But I'm one that I like the twist endings. I like something you weren't expecting to come along and it's like, what? And I'm more of a visual storyteller than the words. And so try to get all the action into it, but then also build up at the end of the twist. So the more anticipation action at the beginning you can build up, first of all, you can catch their attention better. And second of all, what you do is you also build a better platform to add the twist and give something they're not expecting. Now you're all gonna be like, oh, you can't, I'm waiting for something to twist because you're gonna watch the film, you know what's coming. But hopefully it's still something you're not necessarily expecting to happen. We want to tell as much as we can of a visual story because visual stories is the best thing to do with film. But it doesn't have some of the same humor that we're trying to get across with this because it has a little bit of twist ending. What's your takeaway from the first page?
Takeaway from the first page, I like the idea. I think we can do a pretty good job of coming up with like the different sequences. We can make the opening sequence feel kind of fantasy based. I think we'll be able to do a pretty good job of coming up with something like that. I like the idea. I think of the sequencing that you've laid out. The flashbacks kind of picture being like a kind of difficult to see, kind of faded out, spectral kind of manner. Whoever you get to play Sam had better be comfortable doing a lot of running in the cold because it is cold.
We're saying cold around here. We're talking it's like
0.
It's been approaching 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's been pretty chilly. It is supposed to warm up though later this month. It's supposed to reach like the 40s and 50s by the end of the month. So it might just be a bunch of mud instead of snow when we shoot this. Or it might just freeze back to be slippery, frozen mud, which is even better. Yeah. That way you slip and die instead of just fall on a nice, comfy, soft landing. It just kills you.
Yeah. All right, so we have the king, we have the character who's running, Sam. We have a friend who is acting as some sort of guide in this story. So I think we can do that. I think we can make that first page look pretty nice. That being said, I think is the strongest part we have so far.
Yeah, I agree. And that one, like, I'm more of a visual storyteller. I'm not a writer so much, and I wrote this, so I visualize everything, tell the stories visually. So this, we basically wrote it out to be a visual sequence, and not so much a written story, dialogue based, and that's my strength. And this is where we would really tell the story through blocking and
camera positioning,
camera
angles,
lighting, and that's the stuff that
sound effects.
Yeah, that I think I do the best at. So that's why I think the first page is the strength because I put that basically all entirely into visuals.
Yep.
And that's really where my strength is there. So I think the first page, that was really where my ideas all started, was with that, and then it kind of started to, the compilation of things really started to fall apart once I actually started words into it. Wording isn't my strength.
Or naming characters, apparently.
So when it came down to like getting names, like I'm horrendous with names. I come down with like Bob, Sue, Henry, George. Like Sam was about as creative a name as I've gotten, and that really isn't that creative. So like I messaged Andrew because I know he's like, he's just weird that way. He just kind of like knows these things, these weird old names, and he'll remember like the random off facts about different fantasies and things like that.
The fact that Sam, as we'll see later, or as we'll see, he's got a glowing orb and a key. I think that comes straight from the Lord of the Rings.
The key was part of the dice we rolled, though.
Key was part of the dice we rolled, but the fact that there is a important metal object that is oftentimes spherical in nature hanging on a chain around someone's neck.
It was Frodo that was supposed to have that, though, just because Sam had it for a little while.
You know that if the two of them were together, you'd run out of dialogue in the first page.
True.
Luke started asking me for names of the characters. I'm like, well, what are the characters? He's like, we need an old guy who sounds wise. I'm looking for something in like the 1100s, early medieval centuries. Like, okay. And so I started listing off, you know, guys like Eusebius, Procles, a couple of Greek philosophers, Latin philosophers. And then he's like, how do you know these names? Like, what, you can stop. I think he told me to stop after I sent him like 10 really bizarre Middle East ancient era sounding names. Transitioning, I'm like, I'm gonna see if he's actually like knows some of his fantasy history. And so I start actually listing off lesser known Knights of the Round Table from the story of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. And I got to, I think it was the 8th or 9th one, and he says, okay, you can stop. Why are you quoting Knights of the Round Table? I'm like, he does know his fantasy, let's go.
He was coming out with them a little bit too fast, more than I really needed. I'm like, Like, I recognized a couple of them. I couldn't remember exactly where. So I have to admit, I Googled a bunch of them.
That being said, I'm kind of disappointed that you didn't like recognize right off the bat names like Myrddin and Gawain and Luke, who are obviously the historical characters that guys like Merlin, Sir Gawain, and Sir Lancelot are based off. I mean, like, come on, this is about as simple stuff as you can get. I'm honestly disappointed, Luke.
Nerd.
Sam, yeah, we're gonna need to change that name. The second page is where, like Luke said, we start getting into a little bit more of the dialogue, and that's where we learn the friend's guide's Gandalf character's name, and that is Eusebius.
Page 2 out of, this is what we have out of page 3, not very long. So basically it's page 2 is where there's dialogue. And trying to really keep the dialogue concise is what you should be doing anyway, but especially since we only have 50 to 100 words we can use. It made it almost too much on the nose, I think, with the dialogue back and forth, especially with having some of these characters, like, it's supposed to be set in like the 1100 AD or something like that.
That makes sense. I was going to ask about that.
So we have the costumes and setups for all that stuff, and putting it out in the woods was put in the woods so you can't see any like real anything to compare timelines to, because a tree is a tree.
Unless it's an ant.
Then it's not really a tree.
It's not a good time to get into that right now.
Okay. They should have different ways of speaking than we have now. Maybe not the whole these and thous and that type of speaking, but making it more sound more formal almost, the way they speak. Like, are you Eusebius? And then the person just saying his name, Sam, or whatever his name's going to be. How did you know me? Like, we could make that, I think, a better phrasing to make it sound like it's something from this time period.
Something like, instead of "Are you Eusebius?" which, you know, if I could pronounce Eusebius out of breath, which I don't think I can, if I ran into some place and said, "Are you Eusebius?" That's how I would say it now. Had I lived back then, I probably would have said something more along the lines of, "Are you called Eusebius? Are you the one called Eusebius?" Kind of invert the sentence structure a little bit.
Almost making it Yoda-ish, not quite.
Not quite, but yeah.
Not that extreme, but making it a little bit more grand probably is the best way to do it. Because we always dream, when we see these films or think about this time period, we think of the more regal, it's in the king's palace.
You can add an adjective to that line, like, "Are you Eusebius the Wise?" or "Are you the one they called Eusebius the Wise?" Something like that.
Because this is something he's been thinking about the whole time he's been running. He wants to be respectful to him. What is the most respectful way he can say hi?
Right.
And be the most formal, respectful to this guy that could save his friend's life.
Right.
So he wants to treat him well and make sure he feels like he's treated well.
Right, and we can probably do that by just adding 2 or 3 words, which we should have room for, I think. We should have the margin for it.
And like how'd you know me? Like, I just don't personally think of like people this time period going, how'd you know me? At least a little bit better than yo, my homie, but that doesn't come out very well. But it's got to be something a little bit more grand than how'd you know me. So basically, I think it comes down to we need to really fix the language to sound more 1100-ish. I'm not picturing this character as being royalty, so he may not have like the really high-end speech. He hasn't been trained. So once again, if you have any comments, thoughts, let us know. We'd love to hear what you think about this. We have we are going to put in a lock and a key and all that stuff into there. And the lock that we have, like, actually found it online. Here's what it looks like.
It looks really cool. You got to see this lock. It's probably the coolest lock I've seen. I was really surprised when he told me, like, in the link it said, like, antique lock something or other. I'm like, Luke, you're going to blow whatever budget we didn't have. And then I was like, oh, okay, that works.
Yeah, it's one of those the entire cost of the film is going to be the $7. That's the only expense we have as of right now. I mean, we'll get, like, the actors something warm to drink, stuff like that. But I mean, the actual materials to the film, as far as we know, all we're going to have to pay for is the lock. Unless something majorly changes in the script, that's it. We have access to the other costumes. We already have a lot of the other props. And that $7 also comes with a really cool key, too.
It does. It's nice. It looks like something you dig up off a Caribbean island or something like that, out of a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It's cool looking.
And so I think where we really need is maybe just step aside a little bit and actually start, like, what is the environment going to look like with this? I have a couple places in mind where I'd like it to be. That has that classic old building. It's brick walls. It looks like it's a dungeon. And I've been in this place a few times, and it is kind of creepy if you're down there for long periods of time. We have to make sure we don't get any electrical wires that are in there into the shots because it's by electrical panel.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking electrical panels, like panels bigger than this back wall here. It's for a ginormous building, but the basement of the building is creepy.
Yeah, it's really impressive. They've done a couple can you escape rooms, scare games type ideas based out of there. It's good.
Yeah. And one of the rooms I'm actually thinking about, you've never been to, I don't think, because it's been off limits since I made it off limits when I used to work here. And the very first time I opened up, it was the first time, as far as we know, it was open in 30 years. When we went down,
you would be the first one to open that.
Yeah, when we actually converted, it used to be an old classroom, and they shut it down for a while because the Maranatha, the university we work at here, and he's a student. I set up some stuff down in this basement. It used to be a classroom, and when we got down there, it still had writing, and it was signed in 1981. And I opened up the building, or the room again, it was 2011. So as far as we know, no one had actually actively been down there in 30 years. I mean, I'm sure some people had gone where they weren't supposed to and things like that. And, or maybe someone just had the fun of wrote 1981 and said, I wonder how many people think this is real.
I would do that.
But then there was a side room, a porch off of this. And it was like the creepiest, second creepiest moment I've ever done. The other creepiest moment also involved a chair. But I opened up the hallway. The door was stuck. It didn't work very well. And there was cracks in the wall that was letting in the sunlight. And it hit on this one lone chair. That it was just this crack light. It was the only light in the whole room. It was this long tunnel about 45 feet long. The single beam of light hitting, the dirt burst up, so it had kind of that whole really cool dust fog the light was coming through, and there was dripping water on the chair. That was all I could see. I shut the door and left. It was one of those, nope, I'm not doing this at this time. It was just before dark, and I was the only person in the building at the time. I'm like, nope, I'm done.
This university also has a fun history and tradition of discovering ghosts in interesting places.
Maybe start just building out these characters,
okay.
And I think that'll help us a lot. Building out the characters and building out the scenes, and then I think to some extent the dialogue will fill itself in once we understand the situation that they're in, the characters. So I'm envisioning the Sam character as kind of being I won't say younger, but he's not old. Maybe middle to younger aged. Not a really reformed regal. He's not the royalty like some of the people in that period. We normally think of. We normally think of the royalty or the peasants. I'm thinking more towards the peasant spectrum, but not
villager type.
Yeah, villager type. More the
expendable people types.
Yeah, but he's not the one that's covered in dirt from head to toe, and he has no not like the most films they're complete bottom or the complete top, and there's nothing in between. I know that there was a very large divide between the two, but I'd rather not have that person run around with ripped and worn out clothes, partially because it'd be so cold.
Yeah.
So I think having that character is that way, kind of headstrong. It's kind of what I'm thinking.
I mean, if you're taking a chance to try to, you know, find proof to save your buddy from hanging, you gotta assume that he's gotta have some guts. So yeah.
Yeah, and never been one to really take no for an answer. So like
I mean, the king said he's gonna hang, so you're going against the king if you're trying to do this.
Yeah, and that this is his last hope
Mm-hmm.
to come to this guy, and I don't think he's going to leave until he gets the answer he wants. And then he finds out this character is not who he expected. That's going to cause some conflict there because he was ready for one thing and something else comes up, and he's kind of disappointed. And then the old man, Yusuf, yeah, that guy.
Eusebius.
Well, I think we can't talk a whole lot about. He has a double personality a little bit in here, but the personality here, he's trying to be that older regal. Not maybe regal, but the traditional wise man, the Gandalf.
Polonius type character.
The what?
Polonius.
Polonius. Okay, I said colonial. I'm like.
No, Polonius.
Yeah. So I think more of that type of character, where we expect him to kind of just to know everything. So when he says he knows everything, it's kind of assumed he's just wise. He's read all the books, all the prophecies.
At least that's how society would expect of him. Because like in Hamlet, Polonius is the advisor to the king who does his best to try to fix problems, but ends up more or less causing problems and is kind of he's a little bit of comedic relief in the middle of a bunch of tragedies, but he's still trying. And as the culture at that time would have expected him to be the wise man, sage, advisor to the king, he still had a conscience, so he was still technically a good guy, but he didn't really help a bunch. He helped a little bit here and there. Mm-hmm. So that type of guy.
Yeah. Any thoughts about how you think his character should be? And once again, if you have any thoughts of like what you think is a good, wise character, or you like, I really like this guy, put a link to maybe a video below, or even like record yourself saying, hey, this is really cool. Put a link of that or comment below. We would absolutely love to hear what your thoughts are on something like this as well.
I think we could probably sum it up to say that we're looking at a younger character, the guy who is running the villager. We're going to say that he has some courage, he is determined, he is willing to risk himself for his friend, he's not willing to say no. And I think we could say for the old man character that he's probably someone who wants to keep up appearances, also wants to do the right thing, but doesn't want to admit to himself that he's not the hotshot that society would, or even us as the audience, like, oh, that's Gandalf. I'm calling it. That guy's going to be Gandalf. He's going to defeat some Balrog, and he's not really going to be that type of character.
Mm-hmm. And I think with the actual scene, like I have a couple places in mind that I think would work really well. But basically, taking that old traditional brick wall building, almost like he's in a cell, like he's been kind of in this hiding that, partially for his own safety, partially because he's been put there because people want to be safe from him, like the king or whatever, like. They don't want people who could potentially cause rivals, or people look up to him. They want to keep him kind of in his spot. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of one thing with the location. The lighting is going to be one of those. It's going to look like it's candlelit because at the time period, that's the only lighting in there. But obviously, we're going to have to bring in other lights besides just a candle, because just a candle isn't enough lighting.
But we can make it look like it's more of a, even though it will probably feel cool and damp, we can make it look like more of a warm, hot brick type of experience.
Yeah. And like there's maybe add a little bit of light to make it look like there's a fireplace in the corner, even though we don't ever actually show the fireplace. We can make it feel like there's some of that light coming in, the flickering, and just kind of cause that ambience of the location. Mm-hmm. All right, so that I think is going to be it for now. Thank you for watching. Once again, as we've said several times, the video ready. Let us know in your comments below what you think of maybe things we could change, adjust. If you have some really cool ideas for characters that we could add into here, or like, hey, what if you added this twist or changed the person character this way? Or if you have some good lines to replace some of these lines that we read through, that'd be awesome. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. So comment below, like the video, share with friends, get a bunch of people's input, because like I said, we want to create these films together as a community.